I'm going to finish my nails on my right hand. So I figured I'd go live and let everyone watch. So so all I have to do is, besides pick out what color and design, I'm just gonna go live to show you guys how I sculpt a tapered square and how I do a fill, and I'm gonna show you my filing routine. So let's get on to the sculpting first. Okay, I'm gonna use these forms at the current moment. These are from Ugly Duckling, and these are their premium nail forms. So I'm gonna use these. So when I use these forms, you have this tab on the back. For me, with these forms, they're thick enough that I don't have to use them. So I'm just gonna pop it to the side. Regardless of what shape I'm doing, I'm always gonna open up the top and tailor the nail form. Okay. So when you use nail forms, when you take them off with a roll, they're gonna be pretty flat. I like to go between my pointer finger and my thumbs, and I'll pinch the form like this and just lightly roll it between my thumbs, just to give it a little bit extra like curve to it. So when I'm done rolling it, it now has more of a curve. Since we're doing a long tapered square, on these I'm going out to about a number, I want to say like 8, around there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the tabs up, just the front, and I'm like barely closing it. So that way it'd be easier for me to put my form on. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to try to stay in frame for everyone. So most nail techs, when they put a form on, they're just doing this. But what you're missing out by not tailoring your nail form is this section right over here where your free edge and your extension are going to meet. And when you start to file it out, if you get a notch in there, then you're going to have a weak point, and that's when your extension can break. So since I'm doing a tapered square, if I relax my finger, you can see the form points going, the form points going down. If I'm going out to like an 8 or a 9, I want to make sure that the bottom part here is going to be parallel with my free edge and my side walls. So you want to make sure your lower arch is parallel. So if I go like this, and this is hard for me to do on camera, you can see that this is going down. So I want to point the form going up instead. Hello, how are you? So if I point the form going up, okay, now this is my pointer finger, so now if I point the form going slightly up, not a lot, just slightly up, when I line up my side wall, now everything is going to be straight. I am doing good, so everything is going to be straight going this way. So that way when I go to sculpt it out, it'll look something like this when it's done, okay, by slightly pointing the form up. So what I want to do now is I want to do relief cuts. So I'm going to go in the sides. I'm going to cut them around over here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. I'm going to go in right around here. And I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to go right around there. Okay. I'm going to go back in with my scissors, and I'm going to make a deeper cut for my relief cut. And you always want to go at a 45-degree angle going away this way. So since I'm going out to about an 8 or a 9, okay, I am going to close this up a tiny bit because for me, when I'm doing a tapered square, I like to have a tighter C curve on the front of my extensions. So when you're sculpting out the longer nail, if I go a little bit tighter here, and you can see, it'll be more tapered in, if that makes any sense. So now let's put this back on. Okay, now see, with making those relief cuts, see how the form fits right underneath? Thank you. So that form fits right snug underneath. That is what you want, okay? I know I probably should do more lives. See how that form is nice and snug? That is what you need, because remember, with forms, you don't want the free edge, the extension, to look wider than your nail plate. So when you have a form, you want the form to look skinnier than what you're going to sculpt, because everything is going to go on top of the form. So I'm just going to make sure that's straight from all angles. Now, the one thing is I want to make sure it's going straight this way, but since I'm doing a tapered square, I want to make sure my upper arch and my lower arch are parallel. So that is why I personally like to just pop up my form and tilt it up a little bit. So that way it'll go this way. Make sure I get that. Okay. So once I get that in place, my form is tilted up a little bit. Then since you're making the relief cuts, you can now take the form and you can pinch it in tighter here. Okay, and I close everything up so you can see how nice and tight that form is. Let's try this one more time. So I have a whole drawer full of nail forms, so if I make a mistake, just okay, I do it all over again. So let's cut that back. I'm gonna go around here and there for my relief cuts. I'm gonna roll the form again. Hello, how are you? Yes. Let's close that up. As I said, I like to keep the front of my forms, if I'm doing a long or like an extra long tapered square, I like to keep it slightly closed a little bit more in the front, only because by the time, whether it's acrylic or hard gel, by the time you're putting your gel polish and your design on top of that, it's going to bulk out here just the tiniest bit more. Do you have to do the cuts for every finger? These are what we call relief cuts. So yes, I do that with every single finger on all of my clients. It just helps get, in a second, I can show you. I just have to do this off camera for a second because I need to. Okay. Sometimes if you've never gone live, sometimes your depth perception is completely different when you're going live or you're recording a video. Okay, so I had to cut out a little bit here for my hyponychium, but let's get back in there. Okay, that fits a little bit better. I'm like hyper focused. That's okay. Look, that's okay, Beth. If anyone has any questions, just let me know. And I was gonna sculpt this out last night, and I was like, wait, let me save this for a live. How do I make sure the form is straight? Okay, so here's a perfect example. If you look at the form, because I'm trying to do this to show you guys, but I might have to jump off camera. The way I was taught with nail forms, don't go by your first knuckle, go by here, because sometimes if your finger, you can see this pointer finger, it tilts in, but it's still straight when it comes here. It tilts in this way. So if you look at this knuckle, if I take a file, because files are probably one of the straightest sides we have in our nail room. If I take this and if I line it up, you can see that it's not straight. It's going this way a tiny bit. So if I undo this and I pull it, then it's going to straighten back up. And don't forget to check at all different angles. So the one thing I was trying to do before, and I was having a slight bit of trouble, is since I'm doing a tapered square, I want what we call a parallel upper and lower arch. Okay, so if I line this up, you're going to see that since I'm going out to like an 8 or a 9, it's going to point down. Now, if I'm doing like a stiletto, a ballerina, or an almond, the form would be, I could leave it right there. I want to point the tip up, going a tiny bit. So I'm just going to loosen up these sides, and I want to go up just a tiny bit. So by doing that, now the form is going to be open in the back. So when your form is open in the back, it's going to tilt going up. Okay, so I'm there now. For hard gel, everything I prepped off camera, I'm going to go in with Light Elegance VitaPrime in Tack. Why are like these wings not folded down? Because these are not getting in the way of my nail plate. So since I made the cut going at the 45-degree angle this way, I don't have to cut these little like notches out of the way. Some of the forms I do fold the little tabs down. Some I don't have to. It depends on the form. No. So I'm going to go in using fiber gel, and I'm going to go in using one step. So when I build out my shapes with hard gel, I like to use fiber as a base just to get my shape. And then I will use one step on top for my structure and apex. What primer did you use? I'm using everything as a system. So I'm using the Lexy line from Light Elegance, and I'm using VitaPrime, which is an acid-based primer, as well as I'm using Tack. So this just means that I'm using everything as a system that the company recommends to ensure that I'm not going to have any, like system breakdowns and uncuring issues and all of that stuff. You're welcome. So what I like to do first is I'm just going to sculpt out the length first. Almost like if you're using acrylic, you sculpt out your free edge first before you get to your nail plate. I do the same thing with gel. I will sculpt my free edge first, just to get like a general idea of my shape. I used to use acrylic. I'm familiar with it. Sorry, I haven't used it in I haven't used acrylic in probably like 4 or 5 years, only because I found out that the monomer from acrylic gives me really bad migraines. So I had to stop using acrylic. So then I got into using hard gel, and I've used a lot of different hard gels before I stumbled upon Light Elegance. But then recently, in the past couple years, I found out with gel, I am also allergic to Hema by the smell. So, oh yeah. So I use primarily Hema-free. I use Hema-free products since I'm allergic to the smell and not by skin contact. Does it flash dry? Hold on, sorry. Does it flash dry with the lamp? I mean flash cure? Yes, I can flash cure this in the lamp, but because this gel is on the thicker side, this is one of the thickest self-leveling gels that Elegance makes. So therefore I have playtime. And as you can see, I haven't put the hand in the lamp yet, and I haven't lost, like, my shape is not lost. It's still, I can still move around, if that helps you out. Sorry if I'm getting off camera, but some things I just need to see off camera. I'm gonna get this on my nail plate, connect everything. I hope that makes sense. So yes, I can flash cure this if I want to, but that's why I kind of like building out any of my shapes with a thicker gel, so I don't have to have my client like run in the lamp all the time. Having the form tilt up a tiny bit, you now have what we call a hidden apex. So when I go to smooth, now you can see I'm starting to like smooth all of that out. That is going to have, so besides my apex, that's going to start back here. I will also, and it's going to run down the center of my extension. I will also have a little bit extra product at the free edge, so won't, by tilting the form up a tiny bit with like a tapered square or a square, I'm not going to be as resistant to breaking. Makes sense. I'm learning for the first time, 12 years. Look, sometimes this is not easy. I will admit, like, Beth knows me here in the comments, so I taught myself how to use nail forms, but I did get help from other nail techs, like, along the way, and they just, you know, gave me some constructive criticism and said, try this and try that, and I'm gonna put that in there for 2 seconds. I don't want it to run anywhere. So now when taking your nail forms off, you never want to pull down here. So I pinch the sides in and I pull down this way. You always want to pull the nail form going away from your extension. You never want to pull going this way, pull from this way, because then you can risk getting any sort of like stress fractures. But yes, most gels are going to have any sort of like exothermic reaction. And I find that if you're not using the correct lamp, that's when you can have a higher burning sensation. What is a good polygel acrylic for beginners? I'm struggling to do my own. So any nail techs that are in here for acrylic, they can give you recommendations. I will say I've never used polygel or an acrogel before, so I can't, I'm just being honest, I can't give you like a good recommendation saying, oh, you have to use this company because this is, you know, this is the best out there. When it comes to nail products, it's all about trial and error. You have to see not only what works for you, but what is going to work for your clients. Yes, this is hard gel. This is what I'm using right now. But if anyone can recommend any good acrylic for beginners, just let us know in the comments. Do you think my lamp is too strong? I don't know what kind of lamp you're using, so I can't really say like that is too strong. But you have to remember when it comes to lamps, it's not, you're not going based on wattage. Wattage is only emitting power, not wattage is not based on your nanometers and your curing ability of the lamp. That is completely different. So sometimes some techs say you need to have a higher wattage lamp, but you're not curing by wattage. Wattage is only the intensity or the power for that lamp. So now, since I'm doing the fill, let me cure this, and then I'll show you for a second. Since this is thinner, if it's going to move on me slightly a little bit more. Okay. So now when I file, I like to do my sidewalls. I go back in the cuticle, and then I go over this way. You'll see. I would say it's good to have what we call a filing routine. Or sometimes I'll do the side tier, then I'll go around the cuticle. I use both e-file and a regular hand file. After when I'm doing a fill like this, even when I'm sculpting out a new shape, I will always go in with a hand file, because that's just me. That's just how I was taught. I know some nail techs will go in with a hand file, with an e-file, and then a hand file. This is just, it's just what I do. So as you can see, when I'm filing, I'm leaving the top for last. I'm getting everywhere else first. And then you also with longer nails, you have to remember you have to support the free edge, because otherwise if you don't support the nail when you go to file, your client is just going to feel this. They're going to feel the vibrations, whether it's a hand file or it's an e-file. Your client is just going to feel this, and it gets uncomfortable. If I go MIA, my client got here, but I'm going to keep watching while I work. That is okay. Sorry, I had a little bit of a corner piece here that I needed to add a little bit more gel onto. So that's why I'm just going back in here. I filed too much off on this corner, so I'm just going back in and I'm adding a little bit extra. But I'm primarily keeping this here, but what I'm doing is I'm almost, you want to say, like feathering it out. So I'm just lightly like feathering out the gel. So that way when I go to file this area, I don't have to file a lot. Where's everyone watching from? So I know I'm not the only night owl right now. Arizona. Nice. PA. New York. Some of you are on the East Coast with me watching. Netherlands. Salisbury. Salisbury or Salisbury? I'm thinking it's the second one. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Jamaica, Belgium. Okay. I'm filing a new extension. I am using a 180 grit. I'm going to go in with the 100 first. And as I said, you want to make sure we're going, since this is a tapered square, you want to make sure your lower arch and your upper arch are going to be parallel. So when you're done filing, it's going to look like this. So I'm going to go in with my free edge first, but when I'm filing, I'm not going to file up here in the corner because I don't want to create a notch. And if we create a notch, then you're going at the stress point. That's okay. I'm just trying to now stay in shot right now while I'm filing. That's my only thing. Because I don't go live that much, but if anyone does go live, you know sometimes how hard it is to actually stay in frame when you're... We don't have light elegance here in South Africa, though we have Young Nails. I've never used Young Nails, but I know there are nail techs watching this live that absolutely love Young Nails. Questions about acrylic, and I knew that there were other techs watching that could help answer questions. I never have any problems with, you know, if people want to ask questions in my live and have other techs answer. Look, if I miss a question and someone else knows how to answer that question, go right ahead. I will not be upset if anyone wants to, you know, they see a question and they know how to answer it and I missed it. I am not one of those nail techs that says, you know, you can't answer, you know, you can't help me answer questions in a live. Because, you know, we should all be helping each other. Okay, so one thing I learned with filing, it doesn't matter what length you're filing. Instead of, I see some, when you're done filing this part and you want to get now this section here, you want to roll the file. Is there any good products on nail products on Amazon? I don't know. I think I've seen IBD sold on Amazon. You can double check with them, but there are companies like you have Madam Glam, and Madam Glam is open to the public, and they have gel polish. Oh, sorry, drinking seltzer. They have gel polish, and they also have Acrogel. And I do have a discount code for Madam Glam, as well as the files that I'm using these. I do have a discount code for Onyx Nail Pro. Okay, so as I was saying, when you're filing this section right here, you want to roll the file. So instead of keeping it, I'm going to twist my hand a weird way. Instead of keeping the file like this, you want to almost go this way with the file. So you're going to go like this, almost like if you're filing the top here. That's what I like to do with the sides, going this way. So you're just doing a rolling. And remember, to anyone who's a beginner watching this, you never want to file with just your hand, because that is, you know, you never want to just have your hand movement with filing like this. You want to move your whole arm whenever you file, because that'll save you a lot of pain and trouble down the road. Okay, so if you remember how I put the nail form on in the beginning of the live, and I had that really, really pinched, right? And you can see she says C curve. This is what I'm talking about. This is that C curve. And I know not a lot of people like a tight C curve like this, but I mean, and I also had the form tilted, remember, slightly up going this way. So that was why I can file the free edge really thin. But having that file go up a tiny bit, now I have what I was talking about. I started my apex back here in the back third. So since it's going to go down the center of the extension by the free edge portion here, I also have a decent amount of product. So it's like I have, as what I've heard some nail techs call it, a hidden apex right at the free edge section here. I hope that makes sense. I think I'm almost done filing. Sometimes you just want to keep on filing to perfect the shape, but you don't want to over file. Every nail tech will know, sometimes when we do our own nails, our little, perfectionist likes to come out. Our little, forms of OCD, and we need to have everything perfect. And we just don't know when to stop. Thank you. So, yep. So if you were here from the beginning and you saw how nice and tight I got that form, but now you can see this is how I like my tapered squares. A little bit, this is why I pinch the front of the form a little bit tighter. I prefer more of my tapered square a little bit more on the closed end on the front. Thank you. Okay. But that's just my personal preference. I know some nail techs, when they do a tapered square, it is still almost looks like a square nail. So that's why I like to really pinch in the end of the form. So that way I have it from the top, it almost will look like a ballerina or a coffin, but from the side here, that is when you can tell it's a tapered square. I'm more of a tapered square over a square person, only because I like how a tapered square goes in instead of, that's just me and my personal preference. I mean, nothing against a square nail. I'm just, I'm just more of a tapered square person. Especially for me, I don't think it's more of the tapered square. I just love the look of a nail that has a parallel upper and lower arch. For me, the shape here, and the same thing with a Russian almond, they both have that parallel upper and lower arch. And bulky, that's what I was trying to get. It's the parallel upper and lower arch. That is one of my favorites, is when you see this on the shape of a nail. I don't know how to describe it. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, it's just, Hello everyone, how are you? I'm probably going to end the live here because if you guys hang around with me while I'm trying to figure out what color and design, I could be sitting here for a whole hour not physically doing anything on my nails. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions for me, let me know.